Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Jackson and welcome to Melanated Mentor MD. I hope you all are medicated and moisturized and ready to get into today's video. And today I'm going to be talking about a few things that I learned during my transition from my previous residency into the one that I'm in today. So in retrospect, as I was sitting with my thoughts, I realized that deep down in my soul, I already knew I didn't want to come back. However, I was allowing the thoughts that I would be perceived a certain way to overcome that feeling. And so this also had been happening all throughout my residency. However, I was not listening to myself. I was operating based on what other people thought or may think. I was operating based on what is the norm in residency without really getting down to what I needed and what I wanted. So ask yourself if you like what you're doing. If you do not like what you are currently doing, then chances are this is not what you need to be doing. Now, in medicine, there is this idea of delayed gratification that you have to suffer through something to get what you really want. What I have learned is that every time I met a goal, it was not at all bringing me any contentment in the way that I expected. Same with getting into residency. I thought that, okay, medical school is not going great, but once I go to residency, it'll be so much better. However, that was actually much worse, honestly, in a lot of ways. And at that time, I didn't necessarily look forward to the aspects of the job, especially what is supposed to be the best part of the job. I did not look forward to that. And so in my mind, I was telling myself, just get to the next step, just get to the next year. Next year will be better. And it wasn't better. Next year will be better. And it wasn't better. And then next year will be better. And it wasn't better. And at that point, I was like, okay, I see a trend here. So I started to kind of broaden my perspective a little bit. I looked around me, I looked at my attendings. They didn't really seem happy. I don't want to speak for them. However, it seemed like they also were working just as hard and having the similar duties that were uncomfortable or miserable as the residents. And so I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. There's a thing, or I believe in this idea that if you don't listen to your mind and your body will essentially take over. And that's what happened to me during my exit, or that was happened to me to the point where I left my exit. That's what happened to me in the events leading up to my exit from residency. So really get down to the nitty gritty of how you are feeling. All right, so there's this idea that's perpetuated in life that you can't give up. If people are making your life miserable, you have to prove to them that you can do it. So the thing about that is, if you tell yourself that I am staying in this because there are people who don't think I can do it, then you are actually giving them control over your life. Because while you're miserable, they are going on with their life. And somehow they feel less miserable beating you down than actually minding their business and taking care of themselves. I don't want you to feel like you're allowing people to push you out of a residency, because in the real world or in real life, you should honestly go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. Like I said, people say don't let people control you. However, staying somewhere you don't want to be for the sake of proving something to other people is essentially letting people control you. So one thing I had to do to really get through was find my people. And I wasn't necessarily looking for yes people or people to tell me what I wanted to hear. I was looking for people who may have some insight on ways to move forward. And what I also learned was that there were more people than I even realized that were in the same position as me. And so even though they didn't necessarily take a path that I was interested in taking, they were able to help me, specifically by leading me to people who could get me closer to my goal. The reality is my situation was not unique. And if you feel like you're in the same situation, there are more people than you realize that are in that situation. The problem is the idea of leaving a residency is so perpetuated in shame that nobody wants to talk about it. And that's why I made this channel. So one more thing I want to say is that I would be lying if I said that leaving a residency and trying to find another one within a certain time frame is not hard. It is hard, and it was probably the hardest thing that I have done up until this point of my life. I had to essentially choose my hard, because staying in a residency I hated was hard, and transitioning to a new residency is hard. What I had to realize was that the outcome of one hard was different than the outcome of the other hard. So my advice to you, a mantra you should take with yourself, is choose your hard. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks so much for listening. Right now I have my comments turned off because people don't know how to act, and I am not at a place to really deal with anybody acting crazy or saying ridiculous things on my channel. So like I said, I will be firing up an Instagram page very soon, where you can drop whatever comments, suggestions, compliments that you have for me. Like I said, thank you again for listening. And if you liked what you heard, please hit subscribe. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day or night, wherever you are in the world. Take care, peace and love, peace over perfection.